And I believe where there's challenge, there's also opportunity. And I've always been a believer, opportunity is not going to come at our door. It doesn't matter in crisis or not a crisis situation. So we all somehow have to find our inner hero and really manufacture our own opportunities. And I know everyone that's on the call today, you all have it within you to do it. So today we're going to focus on 10 best practices. And what I ask all of you is to turn on your marketing brain and really think about how can you apply this to your brand. So let's get started. Okay, so we all have heard, throw spaghetti on the wall and hope some of it sticks. That's not a good way to go. And we also know that if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same result. And these days, if we keep doing the same thing, not only are we not going to get the same result, but it could be damaging. So I want everyone here, and it could just be like a 1 or 2 page document, to just come up with, you can call it a marketing brief. You don't have to call it a plan. But even if you created a plan January 2020, which isn't that far away, there's no doubt that that plan is totally upended. So we need to be intentional and proactive. And so let's talk a little bit about that, what that plan looks like. The first thing is you really need to create clear marketing objectives. And again, the marketing objectives could even be something like having a goal to retain 80% of your clients, or, a lot of us have more time in our schedules. Teach yourself a new skill, become an expert in LinkedIn. But again, it's you really need to get those goals down, and if you can, make them as quantifiable as possible. The other thing is, and I have another slide dedicated to this because it's so important now more than ever, your target audience. Define them, and think about your target audience. You have internal, and the internal could be staff, and if you're a nonprofit, of course, it could also be board members. And then for the external, that would be clients and stakeholders, and really the community at large. You also want to develop messages, and we're going to get more heavily into that, but you want to develop 4 to 5 key messages that are really timely and relevant. And only when you do all this can you go into the tactics. Another good idea as you're looking at your messaging is look and see what your competitors are doing, and just see what their messages and their tone is, because it could give you some good ideas. And then lastly, you want to create a roadmap. Generally speaking, when I talk to people and tell them to create a roadmap, it would be 3 to 6 months. And I'm advocating if you do 1 to 2 months, that would be fabulous. Again, and just know that our plans have to be very fluid now because things are changing by the minute. So again, I want to get a little bit more into your target audience, but I also want to say this is not the time to stop marketing, but it is the time to be extremely mindful of messaging and tone. You've got to adapt your tone, message, and content. And so how do you do this? First of all, you really need to understand your target audience and what matters to them, because what matters to them now isn't necessarily what mattered to them 6 months ago. And you need to listen. And I know it sounds simple, but a lot of us are not as good at listening as we should be, and you want to address their concerns and their needs. And so you also have to keep in mind, similar to the objectives changing, you also want to define your target audiences, because they may change now too. They could possibly change in geography, or again, you may be targeting large businesses, let's say with $50 million revenue plus, but you may also have a new timely offering, which is appropriate to small businesses. So again, it may be a time to figure out, can I expand our target audience? So I see a lot of businesses, turning the volume down, and it's more important than ever. Communications works best. You've got to create a consistent drumbeat of communications. And the best approach to communications is always inside out. So again, your internal audience, and I'm sure that many of us have already corresponded with them, individually or as a group, about safety and health, and also staying connected. But again, as we all know, similar to today, virtual meetings are just a great way to stay connected. And think about it, your staff, they're really your brand ambassadors. And again, you want to stay connected to them in meaningful ways. Now, let's talk about the external audiences, which are equally important. And I'm sure that you'll all agree. I mean, my email box is like 3 times what it usually is. And the webinar invitations are coming at, like a flood. So we're all bombarded. We have email, we have social media fatigue. And I want you all to be very mindful about the frequency and communications, and just make certain that you're not pushing out too much information. And we're going to get more into what kind of information that you should get out now. So it's really, really important. You've got to focus on building brand equity now. I have seen some brands coming out with these fire sales and discounts, and it can come off as very insensitive and really off-putting. And I wanted to share with you an example of 2 brands in the fitness category, one that is doing it right and one that is doing it wrong. And I have to share with you how I came across these, I guess you could say, case studies, so to speak. So I have one daughter who belongs to New York Sports Club, and my other daughter belongs to Equinox. So my older daughter had shared with me that, so she had a training package, a membership, and she just assumed that the gym was frozen, like most gyms. And, and how she found out that this wasn't the case is her trainer actually texted her. And he said that all the trainers were let go, and that she should dispute the credit card charge. Now, remember what I just said about brand ambassador? It's not a very good brand ambassador, but perhaps the reason is that there wasn't a lot of that inside out communications going on. So let me tell you what's going on with New York Sports Club now. The last social media which they posted was on March 16th. And you might be interested, jump on their Facebook, their site, thousands of complaints. And they have this canned reply: "We apologize for the delay as we've been dealing with many members. Please email XYZ so that member services team can help you." So when you actually try to get in touch with this person, there's still no response. And so now look at what's happened. So there's no updates on any channel, and the fuel is feeding the fire, and in a matter of 2 weeks. And I ask you to do this, you'll find it interesting. If you go to the first page of Google, which we all do when we search for a brand, there's the headlines are: New York Sports Club still charging gym fees to 600,000 members despite COVID-19 closure, and also they were hit with a class action lawsuit. So clearly this is an example of what not to do, and it's an extreme. And then on the other hand, you look at Equinox. Equinox is extremely strategic and creative and responsive. They're showing empathy. they froze dues very quickly. And they're also, like many fitness centers, they're offering online workouts and also daily check-ins. And again, this, I assure you that what you put in now to your communications, you're going to reap the benefits later. And I want to share with you, Maya Angelou has a quote that says just this: people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So think about human nature. We all want to be recognized, we all want to feel important. And I would be surprised if New York sports clubs, with their 600,000 members, will be here a few months from now. So I just wanted to also give you a couple of examples. I think another communication essential now is giving back. I think we all have the wherewithal to give back in certain ways. It doesn't have to be, monetarily. And I know that I'm donating, some messaging services for nonprofits right now that are really in need with help for messages. But think about it, goodwill should really be part of every brand's DNA, and in good and bad times, but really more than ever now. So the type of giving that we're seeing, of course, is supporting healthcare workers. Some restaurants are offering meals and medical supplies, and also donations. So some brands are donating a portion of their sales to help those impacted with COVID-19. And if you decide to go that route, some of the names that I see, some charities, direct relief, and and feeding America. But again, I just think that giving back, it builds brand equity. Of course, it has to be authentic. You can't give just to get brownie points, but there's really the perfect trifecta, because you're going to be perceived in a positive light. It's going to be rewarding to you and your internal staff. And really, most important, you're helping others who desperately need our help now. So we have arrived at number 6. So as a professional marketer, typically one of the first questions that I'll get is, Stacey, how do I get more clients? Or if it's a nonprofit, more donors, healthcare patients, for trade organizations, members. And I'll always turn back, and it hasn't changed any, even during this crisis. Tell me about your existing network. And network is both clients and strategic partners, because they are your pot of gold. It's really all about relationships, and besides, of course, making sure that you stay in touch with your clients, make sure you reach out to your strategic partners. I don't know if you've all experienced this, and I'd love to hear from you, but I have had people coming out of the woodwork, like from years back, and Michael Estrin, I hope you don't mind me using you as an example. I posted this on my Facebook. Michael and I went to high school together, and it's so good to see you. I've seen you, of course, on Facebook. So again, you want to reinforce existing relationships, but you also want to revive some old ones that are meaningful. So in terms of your tactics, maybe on your to-do list, and you make it a 2-a-day habit, that what you're doing is you just go through your LinkedIn and think of 2 people in your older network that you want to stay in touch with. And also remember that, why do people buy or donate? It's really that emotional connection. And I think 80% purchases are made on emotional decision. And so what is the basis of that? It's really about someone liking your brand, someone engaging with your brand, and someone trusting your brand. So again, people buy on trust. So by you know, content is always king. But I think, you know, again, we need to change how we're developing and delivering, packaging content to make sure that it's relevant. So I would ask all of you, and I am doing it myself, even though, you know, these thoughts are flowing at the speed of light. Before you hit the post button, just pause for a second, just for a second. It doesn't have to be for a minute. Just ensure that the email or the post that you're sending is really relevant and relatable to who you're sending it to. So in other words, does it pass the who cares test? Because again, I don't know if anyone has heard the statistic, but the average American has an attention span of 8 seconds, which is pretty sad if you think that in 2010, it was 12 seconds. So that's a 33% decrease. So if you think about, if we all speak about 140 words per minute, we have about 20 words to get our point across. So it's really important to make sure that what you're sending, you're getting to the point fast, and you're making your communications crystal clear. And also keep in mind, you want to stick to your area of expertise. I have seen so much advice coming from brands about, about health advice, but unless this is what you do, there is absolutely no need for you to share health advice. There's more than enough out there. And, you know, a good example of relevant and timely content is, I got an email from a nutritionist. Her name is Linda Fears, and she used to be the managing editor of Family Circle. So she's one that definitely knows about content, and I've been in contact with her. And so she has a blog and email, what to eat to beat stress, and really valuable information. Like typically I wouldn't even read a nutrition blog, but you know, I was pretty much on my cannoli a day sprint for a while. So, you know, after I read, I said, you know what, I need more magnesium in my diet, and let me just go low on the sugars. But she also started a Facebook group, which is called Healthy Eating Under Quarantine. So again, this is the type of information that's really valuable to all of us. So, you know, the other thing is that you want to create a content calendar. So think about, it's the first day of April. And so you know, think about what content are you going to put out for the first month of April. Typically for our clients, we'll create 3-month content calendars, but in these days, one would be more than enough. You want to also stay nimble, and you want to make every single word count. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Forrester's research. You know, we've all heard a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, 1 minute of video is worth 1.8 million words. And visuals are really, really important, more so than ever, because there's a clutter. And another study on 3-day recall showed that if you share information after 3 days, there's a 10% recall to that information. However, if you pair that same information with a visual, 65% recall. So again, include visuals. Very, very important. Okay, so, you know, again, important to consider all touch points. You want to think like you're your own news channel. And again, you want to listen. I can't emphasize that enough. And understand that your audience may be shifting preferences. I definitely have seen more of my cohort on Instagram than Facebook lately. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. Also, know when to take conversation to private channels. There's a lot of people are, there's a lot of angst out there, and some are expressing it online. But again, know when to take that conversation, because just remember, everything that you post is permanent and discoverable, and you don't want it to impact your brand. And also deliver timely replies, and you want to monitor, manage everything in real time. And again, we're in a new virtual reality, and none of us have a choice right now but to jump on the virtual bandwagon. But here's the great thing. The great thing is that you can explore. I love jumping onto a YouTube video that will tell me how to do, like a more complicated virtual session. And the next slide, we're going to go into the types of content, and we'll go into that a little further. So as we see, there's a lot of different content, and some of it may, again, may be decreased in importance. Like, for example, news releases, we're actually generating a lot less of those these days for clients, because unless it's somehow related to the coronavirus, again, or adding value. A lot of magazines, newspapers, and all of you are in different industries, trade publications, they are looking, they're dying for valuable content. So think about pitching them a bylined article, an expert article. And again, that's a great way, that's a great form of content to show your expertise. And again, I would say, if I could highlight two of these bullets right now, and I don't think you'll disagree, it's the type of content we're all focusing on, is webinar and video. And again, like, even video, think about like live stream, YouTube, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. We have a law firm where he was a little hesitant about doing, the attorneys were a little hesitant about doing Facebook Live, but we did it. We rolled it out for the first time yesterday, and now I feel that even after this crisis evolves, that they'll still continue to do it, because very rewarding, and again, opened it up to new audiences for them. And just a reminder, whatever you develop, articles, blog posts, videos, make sure that the tone is empathetic, engaging, and educational. And then last but not least, number 10. So, again, this goes back to throwing spaghetti on the wall. You really need to assess what's moving the needle, and then you have to refine accordingly. The great thing with our digital and virtual world is that you can really pretty much do that in real time. So you want to look at your emails, you want to do some subject line. I'm a big advocate of subject lines. Look at your open rates. Is the average, let's say, open rate is 20%. That's actually a pretty good rate. If you introduce more compelling subject lines, like, are you noticing that you're getting a better open rate? Another thing that I wanted to share with you, because especially any of those who are business to business, LinkedIn is definitely the place to be. And I bet you a lot of you don't know about this tool. Excuse me. It's called the Social Selling Index, and I provided a link here. But basically what SSI does, it measures how effective your professional brand is, and are you connected with the right people. So it's really important to see where you stand, and then make goals for yourself to improve your LinkedIn analytics. You certainly want to be on the top 50%. And I think you'll be surprised at what you see compared to others in the industry. So again, the analytics are looking at you, the profession you're in, compared to others that are in the same profession. And again, you may want to, it'll also tell you, are you connected with the right people? It'll rank you on that. And if you're not, you can certainly, this is a great time to really become a master in LinkedIn. And again, measurement, measurement, measurement. And in summing it up, I always like to look at communications in 3 buckets. So you have your strategic bucket. So you need that, you need that 12,000 foot view, but you also have the creative bucket, because we need to stand out from the clutter. And, so we have to be creative in doing so. And so again, the second bucket, creativity. The third bucket is execution, because you can have a creative idea and it'll just die on the floor unless there's solid implementation. So again, it's really important to do those 3 buckets well. And I ended it with a Post-it, because if there's any takeaway that you get from this, and I hope you get even more than this, but it's, and take a Post-it note and put it by your desktop or laptop, is this is the time more than ever to add value, not clutter. And I'm a believer in what you put in, you will get out. And I'm confident that we're all going to emerge smarter and stronger. And thank you all for your time, and I welcome any and all questions.
In this case, we actually get paid just by the lenders and specify.
What happened?
Thanks, Stacey. I don't know if we're just meant to jump in with questions, Felicia, or comments.
I took everybody off mute except for myself, so I was yakking away. Yeah, please jump in with questions and comments, and we just love to share at this point. And I know it's beyond the 12:30, so if anybody needs to hop, we have this recorded, and I appreciate you coming, but we'd love to just continue the conversation here. It was really a great, concise presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thanks, Stacey. So I'll jump in with a question that you